Heyo, welcome everyone to Today in the Scene by Indie Arcade Way. I'm Joe, your host, and here on In the Scene, we dive into things that are happening in the arcade scene from new indies, arcade developers, arcade owners, and operators, and just news in the video game space in general. So, we're here to answer the question: is the arcade dead? Spoiler on that one, the answer is definitely no. I'm a part of the team that brought Galactic Battleground to the arcade space in 2017, and ever since I've been diving into arcades all around the country and internationally. So I just want to keep bringing the news to you guys. So let's dive into this week's episode. We've got Jakejames Lugo with us this week. He is a video game reviewer, content creator. There's just too many titles to really summarize it in one. He is sponsored by Flynn's Arcade down in Margate, Florida, and I've been wanting to bring him on the show for a little while so we can just chat video games. So how you doing, Jake?
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate you. It's nice to finally meet you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I know we've spoken on like Instagram and TikTok and
Mhm.
while you're on live streams and stuff, but we haven't actually like spoken together. So
Yeah.
let's just have you introduce yourself. Like, who are you? What do you do? Things like that.
Sure. Yeah, I do a lot of different things. My name is Jakejames Lugo. I'm a writer, content creator, podcaster, host. I talk about video games. I talk about a lot of video games and I do a lot of different content. Anything from writing about games, whether it's op-eds and reviews, to doing videos about games, video reviews, let's plays, gameplay videos, podcast stuff, a whole bunch of things. I've been doing this for now, as of January that just passed, over 13 years, where I've actually been doing it professionally as a freelancer, as a person that actually writes for various outlets, including places you probably heard of, including IGN, Playboy, The Coalition, Red Bull Gaming, Padia Gaming, Flynn's Arcade Gaming, and more. Most recently, Clownfish TV. I've actually been doing a lot of their reviews for games and movies and entertainment TV shows and stuff. I do a ridiculous amount of content, but I have my own YouTube channel, which is what I do on the regular. I do new, highly edited, highly produced videos every single week, whether it's game reviews, let's plays, podcasts, just all types of stuff. It's a lot that I do. I wear many hats. I'm trying to be a jack of all trades and a master of all in some cases. So I just love being part of the conversation about games. I love talking about games with people. It's just fun for me, and I just have a ball with it whenever I can. So that's pretty much all I do. Again, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, what is it, Patreon, Instagram, literally all over the place you could find me.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a bunch of stuff out there. I really love a lot of the reviews that you do, and I like your take on a lot of these different games. Let's talk about what it's like working with Flynn's. Like,
Yeah.
what is it meant for Eddie to reach out to you and say, like, I want to sponsor your project here, and I want you to be part of our team. What has that
Mhm.
been like, and what have you been doing with Flynn's?
So me and Eddie have actually connected over a period of years. I was actually there and covered on my YouTube channel the opening of Flynn's Arcade and More in Margate. I was there that first night that they opened up, and it was fun. It was cool meeting him, meeting all the other people there that work on staff. And after a period of time, like I had been doing videos for a while, even way before I had met Eddie, he started following my stuff. He started seeing me a lot at the conventions because I go to a lot of events and conventions and expos down here in South Florida specifically because we have so many that go on. And he was a big fan of my work and he loved a lot of the ways that I did things, that I had actually covered certain parts of the events, spoken to people, done interviews with celebs and common people, attendees and stuff. I literally did a ton of things that he was really like a big fan of. And we started talking for a while. At first, I started writing for their website. I actually started doing editorials for the Flynn's website where they had a blog, and I was writing reviews. I was writing op-eds every single week, every single Saturday. I would post up something brand new for everybody to check out. And after that, after a little while, I was like, okay, let's see what else we could do together because we just mesh so well, we vibe together, and we like just doing stuff together when it comes to the work and comes to the craft. And after a little bit of discussing, we went to lunch a couple times and just talked about stuff. We decided, what else can we do with my YouTube channel? As them as a brand and me as an individual, as a personality down here in South Florida, which has been growing, at a steady pace. It hasn't exploded just yet because I'm not as big as some of the other content creators that you see and probably hear about down here in our region or even in the Florida state. But I'm still at least one that produces a lot and that does a lot and also represents my own personal brand with, integrity, dignity, and, a level of class that isn't really seen in other places. And that was really appealing to him. So after talking for a bit, we decided like, okay, like how can I actually, work together with you guys? And we came up with the idea of him and Flynn's specifically being a sponsor of my YouTube channel and as me as an individual, as a personality down here in South Florida, not like a celebrity or like an e-celebrity or anything like crazy like that, but in a way where it's like, okay, he's a content creator that we trust, that we love, being associated with, and actually doing stuff together with, because he just does dope stuff. How can we actually help him grow as well as also grow our own community over here? And after a little bit more back and forth, we figured out, like, you know what? Here's our sponsored content creator and influencer out here. He does a lot of stuff down here for the South Florida scene for our Flynn's community, our Flynn's fam, and everything else. And we just went from there. Since then, not only have they been, sharing a lot of my content, I've been sharing a lot of their events and stuff. I've gone to a lot of the Flynn's events that they've thrown, between their Christmas party, a lot of their other like Valentine's Day type of stuff. Not the most recent one that happened, but I've gone in the past. Again, a lot of their anniversary stuff whenever they had the opening, that's celebrating the opening of the actual arcade itself. And, even going to a lot of the conventions down here, whenever they have a booth, I'm always there. I'm checking it out, hanging out with the people there, checking out a lot of the fighting game stuff that's hosted by Silverback Senpai. He does not only the streams for Flynn's, but he also hosts a lot of the tournaments that go on at some of these events. And I'm usually there taking pictures, checking out the stuff, posting on TikTok, posting on Instagram, obviously doing the videos on my YouTube channel. Again, the most recent one was Otaku Fest, that I was actually there, not only covering the entire convention and getting my own footage and stuff, but also showing them there and showing the other stuff that they were doing. And it's been fun ever since. It's been very mutual, very, very symbiotic, very, very cool, and just very good, to find good people to work with and do something, whatever your craft is, that actually meshes well together with you. So I've been enjoying it ever since.
Yeah, I mean, you've been kind of working with the arcade scene a little bit with Eddie, but you're also still like very deep into the video game scene.
Yeah.
So you've seen, I mean, you've been doing it for over 13 years. So you've been covering, I mean, we're talking multiple generations of consoles at this point. Back to
even
like,
before then, technically, because
right.
I was part of a lot of it. So again, I'm a Genesis kid, because I grew up with the Sega Genesis, and I was part of the original console war for some people, or the real console war for some people. But like, it was a lot. It was a way where growing up, I had a real good upbringing and perspective given to me about games in general. Because again, that was like something I grew up with from a very young age. So seeing it all change, and again, professionally, like looking at it as a critic and as a person that's like part of the media, and you're not just a fan, just like indulging in it. It's been very, 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 very fun, to say the least.
So kind of on that same vein where you're talking about like now you're more of a critic of what's going on and you're diving a little bit deeper into it, kind of breaking it down. What have you seen with the arcade space in the last, 13 years from it being virtually dead, right? I mean, there was like almost nothing going on. And now I mean, I'm flying down to Florida in a week here to hang out at all the arcades, and there's like 7 arcades I want to visit within 30 minutes of Miami. Like, how do I pick? What have you seen in the space in the last couple of years that really stands out to you?
Well, even more than just the last couple of years, one of the biggest things I can definitely say over a long period of time is that the arcade scene, or just the arcade atmosphere and what an arcade actually is, hasn't really died, but it's changed. It's metamorphized. And really, you saw a lot of places even before the last couple of years where arcades were really finding their place in places like Dave and Buster's, places like Boomers, places like, obviously, like not so much Chuck E. Cheese's, but like areas like that where they could kind of get meshed up together with other aspects, like other carnival games, other like experiences, especially for families and stuff. With a Dave and Buster's or a Boomers, you see a lot of that stuff. Again, you have like bumper cars, you have the other types of like carnival games, you have other types of arcade experiences that don't really make as much money as they did like in the late 80s or the mid 80s to the early 90s, where you had that arcade boom for a lot of the classics. Because remember, back in that generation, I want to say 16-bit to 32-bit, and maybe right around the 3D era with like the original PlayStation 2, give or take. We had a lot of stuff with the fighting game scene, because the fighting game scene with the fighting game community for a lot of those classics was really driving those scenes. Again, Street Fighter, Tekken, Mortal Kombat, especially Killer Instinct. You could even argue Soul Calibur and Virtual Fighter to an extent, but really I find those games were more the most popular ones that people were talking about. And then once things started going over to home consoles, I felt like a lot of those players migrated over there because they got those same type of experiences in their homes. So they were bringing their friends that they would go to the arcade with over to their homes, or at least their friends' houses and stuff. So all that money and all that kind of like business that was going to arcades for a while, they ended up metamorphosizing over a period of years into what I said before, going to those like Dave and Buster's types of atmospheres, to the Boomers atmospheres. And for a while, you hardly couldn't even really find them. You had to be like near one or hear about it from a friend to really kind of get that type of experience, because again, they weren't really that popular. They weren't really booming like that. And I would also say too, more recently, I want to say less than 10 years, maybe about 5, or even maybe less than that, you've had the rise of like cafes, or at least, lounges that really offered that, because they were blending together not only the arcade experience, but also the home console experience. Because those lounges, rather than just having arcade machines, they were having console machines that you get at home. So if you didn't own a console for whatever reason, like again, you couldn't afford it or you just didn't have the space for it, you could always go to this place, pay like $5 or $10 for the day, and go play all these different things. And that's how people would indulge themselves. So it's never really died, but it's definitely changed and adapted for the times.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a big change. I mean, like you mentioned, obviously early on, you had like the all the classics, the Pac-Man, the Donkey Kong, all that stuff. That was like the golden
That's
age,
80s.
right? And then that kind of started to die off a little bit, and then there was the resurgence with the fighting game community in like the
Yeah.
early 2000s. That's when it like really boomed
I
again.
would say I would say fighting games. I would say the beat 'em ups like
Yep,
that. I would say the shooters because you got the
yep,
rail shooters, like obviously Area 51, Aliens, all the different types of stuff that's like that that were experiences you could only get there that for a while you just couldn't get at home.
right. Yeah, and it just kind of morphed now into like we call them like FECs in the community where it's like family entertainment centers where you like
Exactly.
you're saying laser tag, bumper cars,
Yeah. All that
uh,
stuff right next to each other.
yeah, all the redemption games basically. And now we're moving into this era of more like arcade bar, new arcade kind of vibe with Flynn's, glitch bars, stuff like
Lounges,
that,
etc.
lounges
Yeah.
exactly, where it's like you can go in, pay for the day, and hang out, play whether you want to play like PS4, PS5, or you can straight up play Street Fighter the original. And
Yep.
I think it's really cool how these have morphed into each other. I guess obviously spending so much time with Flynn's at events, conventions, and you said you ventured out to Glitch Bar really
Yes.
only when they had Killer Queen. What do you think of this new wave of indie arcade games where people are producing indie games that are going exclusively to the arcade space and they're not really even releasing for home consoles?
I mean, it really depends because I know that the majority of the business that indie developers usually make, or at least a lot of the ones that you see like become a household name, usually go to consoles. They go to the online stores, like obviously PSN, Switch Online, Xbox Live, and stuff. And there's a place for that. But I think also a lot of this is also a lot is driven by passion because a lot of those same people that do experiences like that or devs that get into stuff like that, they know what's so good about it. They know how to actually cater to it. And that's how they could get a lot of people talking about it, especially now with social media being such a big tool, where they could share videos, they could share other people's experiences, and they could communicate with their audience directly, as opposed to just having to go to these specific spots to go cater to them and stuff. But I think it's cool. I don't think it's hit like a giant mainstream thing yet, because again, there's a lot of factors that get like thrown into the mix. But it is cool to see that. Again, when I went to Glitch Bar, I saw Killer Queen, that they had a whole event there like centered around that, and they built a custom arcade machine for it, which is cool. Or even before, when we were talking a little bit earlier, when I mentioned the Behemoth, when they did one for Castle Crashers, where it's like you go to PAX East or you go to PAX Prime or something, they have a whole Castle Crashers arcade machine there that you could play it like a classic 90s beat 'em up arcade machine. And like they just know that experience because they know that audience grew up with that type of stuff. So it's there if you know where to look for it, and it's fun, it's enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool to me that you haven't been back to not Flynn's,
I want to
back
go back. I
to
want to go back
Glitch.
so bad. I gotta get a
So
crew to go.
So I'm going next weekend. They're having Hive City Classic. They're doing
Really?
basically a big Killer Queen tournament. They've got
Ooh.
20, 21 teams coming from all across the country.
Mm.
And we're also doing the Indie City Classic. So there's 10 indie games in there right now. And I think we're running a tournament on 6 or 7 of them.
Cool.
So we're going to be really focused on like the indie arcade scene. And that's one thing I love about Glitch is like they really want to grow that. Like that's their main focus.
Mm.
Um, so you definitely should come down. I'm going to try and hit up Flynn's
You know
while I'm
what? Yeah,
in
you
Miami.
know what? I want to go so we can link up so I can say hi and see everybody there because it's been a minute. It's been too long.
Yeah, so we'll make it happen. I'm gonna be down there. I'm gonna go to Arcade Odyssey, Flynn's, and Glitch are like the
Yeah,
three that I'm
you got
planning
a
on.
lot of fuck it up.
So yeah, I'm ready. Let's talk about your memories with the arcade. So like,
Sure.
dig back in your memory. What are some of your favorite memories with arcade cabinets?
Oh man, like there's a lot. There's a couple big ones I could go to when I was really young, and there wasn't at some point there wasn't a lot of machines or spots where you could actually find those like actual arcade machines for. Some of my first memories being in an arcade was a place that actually had like a lot of classic Sega arcade machines. So I'm talking Golden Axe. I'm talking about like oh damn, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Like there was that. I know obviously at some point we started getting Street Fighter 2 in a lot of places. Original like World's Warrior Street Fighter 2 and eventually Championship Edition and at some point Hyper Fighting. But stuff like that. Obviously X-Men Arcade, the original X-Men like beat 'em up,
That
TMNT.
monster ass cabinet.
That giant freaking arcade cabinet, the one that could hold 6 players for anybody that
Yeah,
doesn't know. That's
it
the
had two
multi-screen.
screens. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. The extended screen like that. Obviously, I've even seen like in random spots, especially in places like a Chuck E. Cheese's or whatnot, I would see machines that you don't really see anymore, like the Michael Jackson's Moonwalker machine, the original Superman arcade machine, stuff like that. And again, eventually at one point, it's specifically because I used to live in New York. I used to live there for many, many years. And one of the big things about our arcade scene up there was that it was always tied to pizzerias. So the fighting game cats that were up there that were really big into that stuff, they would be at pizzerias playing games like Street Fighter 2, playing games like Mortal Kombat, playing games like Marvel vs. Capcom, playing games like Street Fighter 3, whenever it was around, because it wasn't as common as like some of these other games. But like things like that where you get associated with something else that was alongside gaming culture. So for in that case, it was like pizzeria culture where you're having a pizza, you're coming out after school, or maybe you're going out on a Friday night or a Saturday night, you're going to a place like that. And in New York, because it's pizza, there's a pizzeria literally on every single block. So you had multiple spots to go to that probably had different games. There'd be one spot that have like a Street Fighter 2 cabinet, another spot will have Area 51, another spot will have like an SNK red box, like a big red box that has a bunch of SNK games, or like again, just Marvel vs. Capcom, etc. The list goes on. But that's the type of stuff that I grew up with, that I got a little bit of exposure to the arcade scene, because even though growing up I was mostly a console gamer, I would say that that's my core when it comes to gaming, and what I was exposed to at the start. Because I started with Sega Genesis, I started with Sonic the Hedgehog. That was my very first video game. But everything else around that, when it comes to the arcade scene specifically, was parallel to that because I associated with it. Again, reading magazines, seeing stuff, hearing about it from other people. That's where I got exposed to that stuff, and it just stood with me throughout these years.
God, I love that. Like just the pizzeria. I love the small little vibes of the
Dollar
arcade
fifty
back in the
slice,
day.
baby. Yeah,
I've interviewed a handful of people from New York, and they were at the bodegas and they
yep.
were at the
And the
pizza
Chinese
spots.
spots. And the
Yep.
Chinese
Yeah.
spot, Chinese takeout, the Szechuan, and the pizzeria. That's where it was at.
So let's talk about what you got going on right now. You just did some pretty big reviews. You got some new stuff that you're going to release. Kind of tell me about where you're at right now, and then we'll wrap everything up with like your social medias and everything like that.
Sure. Like I've been doing a lot of content, again, a lot of different stuff. The last game review that I did for the channel, because I upload every single week on YouTube, with highly edited reviews and stuff. The last one I did the two Lord of the Rings games, which were the ones by EA. I did Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, which was on PlayStation 2 specifically, but they've had the GameCube and the Xbox versions and stuff. But I reviewed those recently. Very, very soon, actually, after we finish recording this, I'm actually going to sit down and put together my edit for my Hogwarts Legacy review, which has been in the works for the last like week or two, ever since the game came out. And it's just a lot of footage. I got to go through 30 hours of footage to condense it down to like a 10-minute to 15-minute video, to go through everything. I have my script and all that stuff put together. But I've even done other content in the meantime, between YouTube, between TikTok. I've talked about a lot about Star Wars games. I'm a big Star Wars fan, a huge, huge fan of Star Wars video games, between Rogue Squadron, Shadows of the Empire, Star Wars Battlefront, Knights of the Old Republic. The list goes on. I've talked about just about almost all of them. I even did a whole review some time ago about the Atari 2600 Star Wars games, all of them, into one video, which is like 4 or 5 games put together like that. But there's been a lot of games that I've been getting ready for, that I've done reviews for. There's ones I'm looking forward to that are coming in the next month. Well, not in March, but in April. It's Jedi Survivor, which is the next big one for me after Hogwarts Legacy. And then come June, when there's more games starting to come out, between stuff like Street Fighter 6, stuff like Final Fantasy 16. Like there's a lot to get ready for. This is going to be a fun year for game releases, and I can't wait, because I got so many options to play through. And that's not even including Game Pass, other stuff. I know Atomic Heart is dropping in like the next couple of days, I think it is. So that's another one I want to play at some point. But there's a lot of games and a lot of things to talk about, and it's all going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm excited. There are a lot of games coming out. I don't play too much of like the AAA mainstream stuff. I'm way more in the arcade right now, but my wife has been absolutely loving Hogwarts Legacy, so clearly they did something right there. Let's just get shout outs in your social medias before we wrap everything up, and then that'll be it.
Yeah, sure. So right now, you guys can find me literally everywhere. The biggest spots to find me on is YouTube, youtube.com/at Jakejames Lugo, or /Gamers with Gains channel. You can just type in Jake James Lugo in the search bar, and you can find me on there. All my reviews, all my videos are on there. Subscribe to the channel if you can. You can follow me on Twitter, at Jake James Lugo on Twitter, constantly posting every single day on there. Find me on Instagram, at Jake James Lugo, same thing. Literally, I was posting up a couple things earlier about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, because I just saw that movie earlier today beforehand. You could also find me on TikTok. I'm posting literally multiple videos every single day about games, at Jake James Lugo on TikTok. Literally Star Wars, video games, movies, TV stuff, a whole bunch of things. And then finally, you could also find me on Patreon, patreon.com/Jake James Lugo. For $1 a month, or again, any one of the tiers on there, but really for $1 a month, you get a ridiculous amount of exclusive content, exclusive videos, exclusive posts, exclusive podcasts, a whole bunch of stuff on there. I highly suggest you guys check it out. There's going to be a lot of content there for you to take in, a lot of stuff that I know you're going to find something you enjoy.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say thanks for coming on here. I appreciate
Mhm.
your time. I love the reviews, so I just wanted to show some love.
Thank you.
For anybody that's still watching, if you like what we're doing here at Indie Arcade Wave, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us a ton. We can grow the wave. I totally forgot we just hit 500 subscribers, so we're actually
Yeah.
going to do a new T-shirt release. We've got a shirt
There you
that I
go.
haven't even announced yet, so
Nice.
that's coming out. But until next time, peace.